All right, let's get into it. We're going to peel back the layers on a story that's way more complicated and, honestly, way more controversial than you'd think. It's all about this one little number that every Marvel fan has heard, but pretty much nobody knows the real story behind. Seriously, if you're a Marvel fan, you've seen this number everywhere, right? In the movies, in the comics, it just pops up. But I'm willing to bet you have no idea where it actually came from. Because the real story? It's so much weirder than you could ever imagine. Okay, so let's start with the big one, the MCU. Because this is where that number went from being a super nerdy, deep-cut comic book reference to, well, a full-blown mainstream mystery. It begs the question, right? Why this number? Why does 616 keep showing up?
And you can really see the pattern here. I mean, look at this. It starts small, just a little Easter egg scrawled on Erik Selvig's blackboard in Thor. Then boom, it's the storage unit for Ant-Man's van in Endgame. Mysterio is actually the first one to say it out loud, which is kind of funny. And then finally, Multiverse of Madness just comes out and says it. This is Earth 616. So yeah, this is no accident. This is totally deliberate. The big question is, why?
So in the comics, the answer is actually pretty straightforward. Earth 616 is just the official name for the main Marvel universe. Think of it like the trunk of a giant tree. It's the core reality, and all the other timelines and what-if scenarios, like the Ultimate Universe or the 2099 future, they're all just branches growing off of it. It's where our Peter Parker lives, the Steve Rogers we know, the Fantastic Four we've been following forever. It's the main stage. Okay, but that still leaves the big question, right? Why that number? Why 616? I mean, why not something simple like Earth 1 or Earth Prime? Where in the world did this specific number come from? Well, to find the answer, we have to leave the good old US of A and go somewhere unexpected. And believe me, this is where the story gets really good. You can forget everything you think you know about Marvel origins. Forget Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in some dusty New York office. The real story behind 616 is way more obscure and, honestly, it's a little bit devilish. We've got to jump at a time machine and head back to the UK in the early 1980s. Yep, that's right. Marvel UK. A lot of people don't even know this existed, but it was a whole separate branch of Marvel. They'd often just reprint American stories, but they also created their own unique stuff. And it was right here, in the pages of a comic starring Captain Britain, that these three absolute legends, Dave Thorpe, a young Alan Moore, and Alan Davis, would, completely by accident, end up naming the entire Marvel Universe. And here it is, the first massive bombshell. According to the artist Alan Davis, the term came from the original writer Dave Thorpe. And get this, Thorpe kind of disliked superheroes. Yeah, he thought the whole genre was a bit silly. So he picked the number 616 as a little riff on 666, the number of the beast. It was basically an inside joke, a little jab at the main Marvel universe he wasn't super fond of. And this just lays it all out so perfectly, doesn't it? The difference between what we all thought and what actually happened. For years, the go-to fan theory was that 616 was this really clever, loving tribute to the birth of Marvel, June 1961. 6/61, when Fantastic Four #1 hit the stands. It's a great theory, it makes perfect sense, but it's totally wrong. The reality, confirmed by the man himself, is that he just took 666 and basically went, let's subtract 50. So the official designation for the entire Marvel Universe began as a slightly satanic inside joke from a guy who wasn't even a big fan. So, the question is, how on earth did a sarcastic nickname from a pretty obscure British comic book manage to become the official name for the whole Marvel Universe? It's wild. Let's break down how this joke actually stuck. The idea of a multiverse wasn't totally new to Marvel. They've been dropping hints about it since the 60s, but it was really the what-if comics in the 70s that made the whole idea popular with fans. Then, in 1983, Alan Moore is the one who actually puts the term Earth 616 in print for the very first time. And just a few years after that, Captain Britain joins the X-Men spin-off team Excalibur, and just like that, the term hopped across the Atlantic and landed right in the middle of American comics. And from there, it just started to spread. So once it got to the States, the editors kind of needed a way to keep all this multiverse stuff organized. I mean, it was getting complicated. And this legendary editor, Mark Gruenwald, he was basically the guy in charge of mapping out Marvel's entire, well, he called it the Omniverse, which is just awesome. And for a guy like him, trying to keep track of everything, 616 wasn't a joke anymore. It was just a really handy, simple label to tell the main timeline apart from all the others. And just like that, the joke became a filing system. But the moment that really truly cemented 616's importance for good
That was the 2015 Times Secret Wars event. I mean, this was a huge deal. The entire multiverse was literally destroyed, wiped out, and then it was rebuilt from the ground up by Reed Richards. Now, when the dust finally settled, the one central prime reality was, you guessed it, Earth 616. And here's the kicker. Characters from other dead universes, like most famously Miles Morales, they were folded into 616's history. So 616 wasn't just the main universe anymore. It became the literal lifeboat for what was left of the entire multiverse.
Okay, but just when you think the story's over, here comes the final and, honestly, the wildest twist of all. Right when 616 is becoming this universally accepted term, by fans, by writers, by pretty much everyone, the guys at the very top of Marvel Comics, they come out and say they absolutely, positively hate it.
I mean, listen to this. This is a direct quote from Tom Brevoort, Marvel's executive editor. He did not mince words. He said it just sounds so stupid, and that it goes against the whole vibe they're trying to create. This idea that the Marvel Universe is supposed to feel like our world, not some weird numbered sci-fi experiment.
And just in case you thought that was a one-off opinion, nope. Here's Joe Quesada, who was the editor-in-chief back then, and he's basically saying, yeah, what he said. He hated the term pure and simple. He felt it sounded way too much like their biggest competitor, DC Comics, with all their Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth Prime stuff. So you've got the two most powerful guys in Marvel Comics on the record saying they can't stand the name of their own universe.
So what gives? If the bosses hated it so much, why are we even having this conversation right now? How is this name showing up in billion-dollar blockbuster movies? How did this little inside joke that became an editor's filing tool end up winning the whole war? Well, the answer is actually really simple. It was just too useful. It was too late. For decades, fans, writers, everyone had been using 616 as this super clear, easy way to talk about the main Marvel timeline. It just worked. Trying to get rid of it at that point would have been like trying to tell people they can't call tissues Kleenex anymore. The name had already won over the people who actually mattered, the fans.
And this right here, this is the final victory lap for good old 616. It became the standard term for fans. The writers in the comics just kept right on using it. And then, the final nail in the coffin for the haters, Marvel Studios. They're a completely separate division from the comics guys, and they just went all in. They put it in their movies, they even named a whole Disney Plus documentary series, Marvel 616. They completely bypassed the comics editors and launched this nerdy, controversial number into global pop culture forever.
So what's the takeaway from all this? You've got a number that was born out of a writer's dislike for superheroes. It was then publicly rejected by the very editors in charge of the universe it named, but it was kept alive and was ultimately made world famous, all because fans and creators found it useful and embraced it. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Who really owns a fictional universe? Is it the people who create it in the first place, the people who manage it, or the fans who live in it?